Welcome to another great episode of the Means of Grace podcast, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. I'm Reverend Enniss, and it is graduation season, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't already felt it, yes, my fellow scholars and I were blessed to see it through to the end of an academic chapter. But today, we're not just talking about that journey. We're turning our eyes toward Lake Junaluska. I am joined by my co-host, as always, Reverend John Yeager. John, how are things?
Well, first, congratulations, Jesse.
I appreciate it.
He is a
Thank
graduate
you so much.
of Duke Divinity School.
If you couldn't tell.
For those of you just listening,
Yeah.
Jesse is wearing one of the more obnoxious Duke shirts I think that they sell. It is bright blue, gorgeous, with that seal right on it.
The most obnoxious one I could find.
Duke, indeed.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Jesse. That's really amazing. It's fantastic. It is an amazing seminary, maybe second only to Candler School of Theology and Emory. I don't know. Just kidding. We actually
don't listen to rumors.
We have some amazing seminaries in our
we
midst. But it's also a wonderful day because, and as a Duke fan, you should know that the Gators are still the NCAA men's basketball national champions.
We don't think about the past. We like to keep our eyes toward the future. So
There you go. What else is ordination? And ordination and graduation. It's just all forward things, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It is. It is time for annual conference. I am super excited to be here, Jesse. Thank you.
All right. I'm grateful to have you. And as far as news from the communications office, all the news right now is centered around annual conference. So annual conference is going to be the topic of this day and every day until June 19th to the 22nd, when annual conference actually is. We want to encourage you to go to ac2025.org for all of your questions. Most of them will be answered there. And if you need any more questions answered, please feel free to reach out to us. You can leave us a comment, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But we're looking forward to answering a lot of your questions between now and annual conference as well. And there is a webinar, WNCC, Western North Carolina Conference virtual Q&A session with Kim Ingram and Bishop Carter. That will be on Monday, June 9th at 6 p.m. If you are listening to this podcast on Monday, June 9th, it's at 6 p.m., and we encourage you to participate in that. That's going to help you understand so much more about annual conference, and we're going to try to help paint that picture a little bit today as well. What do you think, John? Think we can do that?
Love it. We're going to hit a couple of topics, but we're going to do an amazing job on it, listeners. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned. But as John was saying earlier, I did graduate. It was a little nerve-wracking. It was a little touch and go there towards the end. Wasn't quite sure, but did have an opportunity to graduate. So I didn't. So if you don't know, I did the hybrid program, which was a brand new program at Duke Divinity School. Everybody in my cohort, we decided we were going to get T-shirts with a guinea pig flying a plane on the back of it, because we were first in flight, and we were the guinea pigs for a lot of that, because Duke had never done a hybrid program for the MDiv before, and so we were all just kind of figuring it out as we go along. But it was an amazing experience. Loved getting an opportunity to study at Duke. I'm still referencing a lot of those things, and I'm sure I will be for years to come. So I made sure that I took good notes, and that I've got everything saved in everything saved on the cloud and saved on a hard drive somewhere, so that I can always go back to all that stuff. But it was a great opportunity to get to know my professors as well. Duke's professors were a lot more accessible than I thought they would be. I think there's this kind of narrative built up around Duke and how prestigious it is, and so You might think that professors don't necessarily have time,
Right.
have time for us, but they do.
Publishing and speaking and things.
Exactly.
Right.
And they did a phenomenal job. And so, really grateful to have an opportunity to get to know them. And one of the professors there that I got to know, that I knew a little bit beforehand, was Bishop Carter. Bishop Carter was one of the facilitators from one of my classes, which is always fun to be in conversation with Bishop Carter. So it was a really good time. I got to meet a lot of really good friends, hopefully lifelong friends, and it was a lot of work. Much reading, but it was a lot of reading, a lot of good stuff, a lot of things that got me really motivated, really excited, really inspired for pastoral ministry. So
I got a question. I got a couple questions.
Yeah, go for it.
So a thought, do you remember any thoughts you had entering seminary, like right before day one or whatever, that maybe you're not leaving with?
So one of the thoughts I remember having right when I started, a lot of you might know that I started as a licensed local pastor. So, a typical track, not for everybody, but a typical track is that folks will graduate undergrad and then they will go to seminary. And then they will receive their first appointment after seminary. I didn't do that. I took one of the other tracks, which was I was serving in my church for years, and then unfortunately the licensed local pastor before me had to step down abruptly, and so I started preaching even before I got my license, and then I got my license, and so I did the whole process of discovering my call and going through licensing school, which was a really great opportunity as well. And I had been serving under a license for a year, but serving really for 3 years at that point. And so
you're a seasoned veteran before.
And so I went into Duke thinking, I'm probably gonna be, valedictorian here.
They're all gonna look up to you, man.
Exactly. People are gonna be, I did go into it thinking that that this was gonna be a piece of cake, and it was not a piece of cake. It was certainly not a piece of cake. Being in seminary, having 2 young children, and being in ministry at the same time, and doing this wonderful podcast at the same time, and being a part of the leadership development team, there's a lot of juggling. yes. And then also coming out of the pandemic, and we're all, like I said, we're all trying to figure this thing out at the same time. It was a lot of things to juggle. And so, one of the things I thought I knew a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I thought I knew, I thought that Duke was going to be just kind of like filling in the gaps, and Duke changed the whole picture. And so studying in seminary just legit just changed the whole picture for me. And it was an experience that I wouldn't trade for the world. It was awesome to study alongside folks who also had started in ministry as well. So we had because we were the hybrid program is kind of designed for folks who are already working. And so we had the full range. We had folks who did just graduate from undergrad and hadn't done their first appointment yet. And we had folks who had been serving their church in a lot of different capacities for years, even longer than I had. And so I just had the full spectrum of experiences to learn from. And, not just folks who are Methodist, although that was the overwhelming amount, but folks from a lot of different denominations.
That's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, folks who were just trying to figure out, what is God calling them to. I was like, this is a really hard way to figure out the call, but it is a valid way to do it.
Right.
And so, it was really cool to hear, like not just to wrestle with some of the big questions that we were asked, but also listen to other people wrestle with it and the perspectives that they were wrestling with it from. And I think for me in my ministry, it kind of helped me to be more prepared for where the different folks in my congregation are going to be coming from as well.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it was great. And I don't know, for me and for the hybrid students, because we were only there for 1 week of every semester. So we did the fall, spring, and summer semesters, and we were there for a week of each semester. We were only there for like 3 weeks a year. But for us, it was like a pilgrimage to get to Duke, you know, to separate from ministry, separate from family, to do this like pilgrimage.
That's a cool way to look at it.
And we, you know, got an opportunity, you know, every day of immersion week, we had a worship service every morning.
Yeah, and you soaked it up because it was
exactly
just a couple weeks. Yeah, cool.
and you know, for a lot of us who serve, you know, who are in that leadership position at church, got an opportunity to receive. And so, yeah, it was a beautiful pilgrimage. You got to really kind of wrestle with what God was placing on your heart for that week. And I really did, I mean, have a major, it just kind of worked out that way, that like I had a major thing on my heart to wrestle with. And, I would always find my way somehow walking around Duke Gardens, kind of talking to God and wrestling with whatever I was wrestling with at the time, and participating in different spiritual practices that we were encouraged to there. And it was just it was really good timing for a lot of the things that I was wrestling with. And so yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, like I said, I had a totally different perspective on even like itinerancy before Duke as well. Like as a licensed local pastor, I didn't have to leave my appointment. I could have stayed there. Forever if I wanted to. But you know, I really felt called while at Duke to explore a different context, just so that I can learn more.
I think you will ultimately be able to bless more people.
Exactly.
Over time that way.
And be blessed by a lot more people as well.
Well, yeah, but that means then that makes you bless other people well too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Circle. It goes on.
Yeah, circle of blessing. Circle of life. But no, like so I made some really big decisions that I don't think, for my ministry, that I don't think that I would have made had I not been exposed to seminary and and just that different perspective too. So yeah, it was an incredible experience for sure.
Very cool, and congratulations again, Jesse.
Yeah.
Most recent
all about that though, John.
Duke Divinity School. I do. It was a minute ago that I graduated from seminary, but Candler School of Theology. I had one story, I guess, that I had from seminary along those lines of an idea I had come in and going out, was that I thought I understood what a preacher did, because my dad was a preacher, and so I grew up with it. I thought I understood why they're there, what a preacher is there for, and I had no idea what a preacher was there for. I think spiritual formation and being a leader in that way, and the mysticism and all of that stuff was maybe not even on my list, somewhere way below giving a very well-educated, thoughtful sermon, eat a deep, intense Bible study filled with academic, good, solid academia, and then essentially run a staff.
Yeah.
And that's it. We didn't spend any time on any of that stuff. Except for the well-crafted sermon. But even that got kind of taken away, because one of the first things they said on day one was that they were going to take our Jesus away.
Man.
Say more. One student left. One student got up and left.
Yeah, because that's why I said say more, because I would have left too.
One student did. One student was like, nope, thank you for this. This has been fun. He came back to school, but he did. He got up and left. Yeah, because, well, if he had stayed, would have heard that, the explanation of essentially the next part was, don't worry, you can have him back the way you brought him in if you want him. But you're not going to want him.
Yeah.
The Jesus you came in here with is not going to be the Jesus. And it was an incredibly beautifully profound thing that they were doing. But to some, like you said, it just kind of hit wrong.
Yeah.
And so that was my introduction. I was like, oh, well, this should be interesting. And they weren't wrong. I didn't want the singular perspective Jesus I came in with. I don't even know if I could have. It's like going from black and white to color.
Yeah.
There was no going back.
That's awesome.
Yep. And the most important part now is now you are a graduate of seminary, so the rest of your life is continued education. Unless somebody talks to you, unless Luke Edwards or somebody or Dan Pizzette or one of these guys that are getting their doctorate convinces you to go to get your PhD.
Well, no, I'm probably gonna do a DMin.
He's doing it, ladies and gentlemen. An announcement
right now, though.
has just been made.
Not right now, though.
Seminaries, get in your applications. Jesse is looking for a PhD, a DMin program. He is on the lookout. Candler's nice.
I did the whole thing trying to study with two small children who have no concept of the fact that I need time to focus.
No, of course not.
And really don't care. And
nor should they.
So I'm gonna wait on that. All
right. Well, you got time, seminaries.
I will say though, Rob Hutchinson and Dan Pizzette and Luke Edwards have really inspired me to kind of.
That's what they do. That's why I try not to listen when they get too close to them right now. I know they've got a good. They'll sell me on it. I know they will. I'm moldable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So but yeah, I mean, it's all continuing education, right? Because like I said, one of the things that I learned is that I don't know anything. Like I went into Duke thinking that I just needed, Deke was just going to throw me some resources on the side. And then I realized, I don't know anything at all. I need to start over from scratch. So yeah, definitely. If there's one thing I learned in seminary, it's that I have a lot more to learn, and it's probably going to take me a lifetime to do that, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. That's
right.
That.
So
the Bible is dense.
Yeah, that's right. I had that right after seminary. I didn't do well in school, most of school until seminary. Oddly enough, I actually did well. Good. But when I was out, I didn't want to learn something new. Yeah. I mean, I just genuinely. I mean, I was done. Yeah. Done learning. Like I did the minimum requirement. And it took years. It took a few years for me to come around to that. Not that I didn't know that I didn't know. Like that there's so much more to learn. It's just like I didn't have because I just had a baby. Like we just had Henry. Like you're right. Like all of that just went away. So it took several years for me to come around to that. Oh, there is so much to learn. And then the next step for me was telling myself, John, you're never going to learn it all, so you can only learn as much as you can, and you're running out of time.
Exactly.
I was like, I heard that running out of time in my head thing, and I was like, dang it.
Yeah.
So I started studying, and I study for hours a day now, and it doesn't even faze me, which is the strangest thing coming from me.
So we had different perspectives on graduating. So I have a coworker who has a very similar perspective to you. She was like, I didn't want to look at a book look at an academic or theology or anything like that for years, and she didn't. I'm from the other perspective where really I felt, because of the lack of time, because of being in ministry and doing all these other things at the same time, I felt very kind of held back. Like I felt like I really could only do what I needed to do to get the grade. I didn't have time for anything else. I needed to solely answer the question they were asking me. And while I'm like reading and I'm like, oh, but that chapter sounds so cool, I don't have time for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And so like now it's like, okay, great. Now I can go back and find all those cool chapters and like dig a little deeper on all those things that I had to like force myself to ignore in the moment. And
It
so
kills you, doesn't it? You're like, oh
it
man, I bet
does.
that would be really interesting.
It does, yeah. So like now I'm like, So like now I'm like, I'm going back, and then also, I am. The next part of the journey is coming. Commissioning. I'm working on that, and so I am still digging deep
Very
into
much in
a lot of that
academia.
stuff. Yeah,
You still have papers
still
to
have
write.
papers. So
Oh, man.
many papers.
But that's the connection. Hey, right. So that's the connection from seminary to
Yes.
ordination. So in the United Methodist Church, yes, you are required to have your bachelor's degree, and then you are required to have a seminary degree, master's of divinity from one of our approved seminaries.
Yes, sir.
And that just gets you in the door.
Exactly.
Because then they're like, hey, now you're in the waiting room.
Exactly.
It's very nice. It's a wonderful waiting room. Pictures of John Wesley, Susanna everywhere. It's lovely.
Yep.
However, now the next step begins, right?
Exactly.
And you move from an academic understanding to a why does it matter, where the rubber meets the road, whatever analogy you want to put out there. As clergy, we probably have too many metaphors for these things. But we understand that. We understand the difference between an academic understanding and an actual understanding.
Yep.
So the connections are that you're going to be doing paperwork, and then the Board of Ordained Ministry will read those papers. You'll go before the board, and those interviews happen, and then you're passed along, and eventually, theoretically, you are ordained. Which brings us to annual conference.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to, like I said, I just graduated. I had some folks in my cohort who have already been commissioned. They started their papers while they were in school. A massive feat, I will say.
Indeed.
And they did their papers. They met with their district committees. They went to the next step of meeting with the Board of Ordained Ministry. They were like, hey, I'm meeting with the board. Pray for us. And I'm like, all right, let's pray. And we prayed. And they had amazing interviews, I'm sure. And they were all approved for commissioning.
Hey.
And so I've got a friend who in Tennessee, and she just did her annual conference. I was looking on Facebook, and
some have already had theirs.
Yeah, and so she's already been commissioned and got to see all the cool pictures and everything like that. And so, it's an incredible time.
It is.
And I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to be commissioned this year as well. So, yeah, it's coming up, guys. How you feel ready for it? No.
Things need to happen between now and then.
Things need to happen. That is for sure. Yeah. And so like John was saying, if you're unfamiliar, there's a lot of decisions being made at annual conference. There's a lot of fun to be had as well at annual conference. I think
reconnecting.
Yeah, for one, reconnecting. It's kind of like Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
you get
it's
a
a
chance
reunion.
to have a reunion with folks who you've been on this very long journey with. You get an opportunity to reconnect with other folks in your conference. Get to meet folks. It's like it's like a Thanksgiving time. It's like a fellowship time. It's like a networking time.
There's workshops so people can grow together.
Exactly.
So cool.
And so you might be one of the lay delegates. This could be your first time. I'm just gonna say, be prepared to experience a lot of it, and to kind of soak it in while you're there. And I mean, there's not a lot of other places that are as beautiful as Lake Junaluska to actually do that at.
Indeed, and sacred spaces. And we believe, at least so. I'll out myself. I believe in mystical places. I believe in the thin spaces, places where worship has happened for so long that somehow the veil between here and there is thinner. And we believe one of those places to be Lake Junaluska.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's always a conversation part whenever it's discussed. And so that's important.
Yeah, and I remember going to, so if you don't know, I was part of the leadership development team way before I started my pastoral journey. And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I've worked with Kim Ingram for a long time, and so I've been to conference for for a leadership development related thing first. But one of the things that completely blew me away was the worship, and how like you get clergy and these committed, lay delegates in a room together, and you play their favorite hymns, and this place just explodes. I mean, it is amazing. Absolutely.
It's like the clergy. It's like so many of the clergy haven't had a chance to worship yet.
Exactly.
Like they're still
thinking about
their clergy. It's the only place where they can take that hat off.
Exactly.
Like it's crazy. It's very cool.
It's amazing. So loved that. And I remember leaving thinking, man, this place is hopping. Like these people are in it. And so since then, I've been I got my license in 2020. I like to tell people I became a pastor when the church was closed, and but so there wasn't annual conference 2020. Obviously, there wasn't annual conference 2021. I don't think it was until 2022. Remind me if I'm wrong, John. I think it wasn't until 2022 that I was able to go to annual conference as clergy, and an amazing experience there as well. Of course, I didn't fully recognize all of what I was getting into, but kind of learned some of that stuff on the job. But it was a really good experience getting to be a part of the clergy session as well. A lot of important things happening, a lot of important conversations happening. And so now that seminary is over, I'm looking at it with a little bit of different eyes as somebody who's preparing to be, who would like to be commissioned next year's annual conference. Yeah, I'm kind of looking at it with a little bit more of like hopeful eyes in that sense. Get an opportunity this year. Thankfully, I get an opportunity to be a part of one of those workshops that you were talking about as well. So it's gonna be a good time. How about you, John? How has it changed over the years? You started before the pandemic, and now you're post-pandemic. How's it changed?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, it's changed in so many ways because through just natural evolution of time, mixed with disaffiliation, mixed with pandemic, and then you throw in our political climate, and it's just different. And yet, one of the things that I'll say is, over the years, we hurt feelings, get grief. There's friction over what can or should not be changed about annual conference. How long it is, where it is, what is exactly in it, the tone. I mean, everything. And there's always there's so many things we can't change or else. And there's kind of that weird, we can't change anything about it or else, but there's never the or else is, what does that mean now? And now that we've had the pandemic, now that we had a virtual annual conference, now that that's gone now. That fear of changing, the fear that if we change too much, we will change. Is valid, but perhaps not applicable here.
It's interesting that we do that at annual conference when we do this very same thing in our local churches as well.
Isn't that interesting? We do. But we have an opportunity.
Yes.
As the people of the resurrection, as people that are supposed to desperately believe in death and rebirth.
And resurrection and
part
rebirth.
Of how it works. Not just a luxury, not just something that when it happens, we kind of lean into it. It's something natural that has to occur.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the pandemic did that for us.
Yeah. I think, bringing a lot of that in perspective for sure. And having all those things taken away.
That's right.
Because I remember being back at the first annual conference after we were online for 2 years. And, I had never experienced annual conference before. But just like, I wasn't eavesdropping, but just like walking by people and hearing people say like,
gosh, yeah,
Like, this is so great. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I miss this so much. It was like, man,
You
this
don't know
this
what
is
you got
something
until it's
that
gone,
people
man.
really, this is something that
And
people really look forward to. Yeah.
it's
So,
interesting. I mean, nobody really looks at it this way, but it took losing Jesus for the disciples to finally realize that they needed him.
that's true. That's very
And that's
true.
just how we work.
That's just
And
how
it's
we
one of the
do it.
last places that we can feel the pulse of our connection. We just live in a time and a place where clergy can't gather as easily.
Mm-mm.
Just on the fly or on the regular. We're just too busy, too separate now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a necessity in feeling that every year. And you're right, we experienced that after the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of the conference, though, one of the things that the bishop would really like us to focus on is for clergy to come to the ordination service. So
Yeah.
if that is not a normal priority for you, and I'll admit, before I started taking pictures for it, it wasn't necessarily a priority for me. My
Yeah.
apologies. But if you could please come, robe up, red stoles, and be there for each other, as ordination is one of those things that is so mystical in the sense of it goes all the way back to Peter. And when you get ordained in the United Methodist Church, the bishop gives you one of those great documents that says, they were ordained by, all the way to John Wesley, and then all the way to Peter.
That's really
And that's
cool.
just a really cool thing
Yeah.
that we believe in the United Methodist Church. So
Yeah.
come and be a part of it.
Yeah.
I'll take your picture.
It's interesting. So being that I just graduated, a lot of folks at our churches are not, we have a lot of new folks in our churches, and they don't fully understand what it means to be a United Methodist pastor and the path that it takes to get there.
Yeah, the dedication,
And-
conviction, and
And so I've personally had to answer a lot of questions because folks are like, well, you just got your master's in divinity. What's next? And they're like, okay, so when are you going to be ordained? And I'm sure they're thinking it's a few months to a year. You know what I mean? And so I've had to say, like, there's this process that it takes. And, in their eyes, they're like, well, you've been our associate pastor for a year. Like, what's really going to change? And I've really had to kind of wrestle with that personally in that. And the thing that changes, the thing that's most impactful as a licensed local pastor, or, we've got some pastors that are going to be commissioned this year. The thing that really makes the difference is that you have been approved by your local congregation, right? You have been approved by your school, your seminary. You've been approved by the district committee. You've been approved by the Board of Verde Ministry for this part. But ordination is an opportunity for you to be blessed and encouraged by your fellow clergy. It's an opportunity for your fellow clergy to be there and to say, we affirm the call that God has placed on you. God has given you this call. Your congregation sees. Everybody else has seen it. Everybody else has approved it. But the people who live it alongside you get an opportunity to say that. And so it's really important, I think, for all clergy to show up and to say, we give God thanks that God is still calling people.
And that they're not alone.
And that they're not alone. Exactly.
We're, clergy today are so isolated. We just are based on so many factors. We get ordained, and then we leave annual conference, and we're isolated.
Yeah.
And you come to show them they are not alone.
Yeah. And I know you, John, remember when you were first ordained and when you got your first church and those early years and all of the things that you learned when learning felt like it was under a fire hose, and I'm sure all clergy remember their first few years and their first big mistakes and how it made them feel. And
that's a whole nother episode, Jesse.
That's a whole nother episode. But all that to say, like, your fellow clergy, the ones who are being ordained now, need to know that you have their back
That's right.
And that you get it. Because that's the thing, like, as clergy, people don't really get it. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
Like,
You said it right on the head. Somebody else gets it. Somebody else sees you, and being seen in a really fundamental way is rare for clergy.
You can be on a staff of like 20 people, but unless you have another clergy person,
that's right,
they don't really get it, you know?
That's right.
And so, yeah, you know, our clergy need to know that the folks who get it are going to show up, you know?
That's right. They'll be there. Amen.
So that is my plug for when I am being ordained, that you show up for me, please.
That's right. That's right. See, I was actually lucky. I got as an elder, full connection elder, I'm going to say blessed because it was the year that it was virtual. And
really?
So, yeah, the body wasn't there.
Man.
And everybody was like, oh gosh, this is the worst. I'm so sorry. And I'm like skipping around. I'm like, I've been dreading being up in front of all those people for I can't even tell you how long. I'm having the time of my life.
That's an interesting perspective. Didn't think about it that way. I like that.
That was great.
It is nerve-wracking. You only get ordained once.
That's right. Exactly. So I was no pressure on me. I was like, hey, it's just me and like a handful of folk. This is fantastic. How intimate. And it was quiet.
So you were ordained 2020 or 2021?
2020, I guess. Yeah.
2020. Cool. Well, I didn't know that about you, John. We're learning all types of things today.
Indeed. This is my 15th year in ministry.
Man.
Okay.
15th year.
That'll sit for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, just threw up a little bit in my mouth. It's fine. Everybody's fine. Nobody panic. The years add up. I know. I just turned 40, 15 years in ministry. There's the kinds of milestones that happen. They're good. They're glorious. Maybe I'll learn something one day. I got it. Speaking of learning things, though.
Yes.
There are some things that are happening at this particular general annual conference.
Mm-hmm.
We had general conference.
Yes, we did.
In 2024.
Yep.
My brain it can't date things right now, but yes, in 2024, and some changes were made. But
just a reminder, that general conference was the 2020/2024.
That's right. And even on the book of discipline now, it says that. It says the 2020/, which is fantastic. It's good to have a sense of humor about these kinds of things. There you go. Very good point, Jesse. And it was post disaffiliation, so a lot of churches and representatives had left the United Methodist Church, and changes were made. But not all changes could just be made by the General Conference. They send it out, much like if you're a constitutionalist, to change the Constitution. Don't laugh at me, Jesse. There are other people that are constitutionalists out there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not.
Yeah. If to change the Constitution, right, the states have to ultimately ratify it. The government can't do that by itself. So we have a very similar structure. They can essentially make these changes, but the annual conferences have to ratify it. So some of those are going to come up, and we happen to have 4 particular amendments that are being discussed and going to be voted on at annual conference this year.
Yes.
Yes. It takes a 2/3 aggregate vote across all conferences to pass. And we're going to walk through them really quickly. These are, forgive us desperately. We are just a podcast. We do not, we are not the folk to be going too deeply into this. We just want to let y'all know kind of what's going on, the cliff notes, if you will, the quick news bites.
Yes.
So, Jesse, anything else you want to say before we go into Amendment 1 about that? Did I miss any content?
No, I think that's great. I think for some folks, they might be asking, like, well, you had General Conference 2024. You also had Annual Conference 2024 a little bit after that. Why didn't we just deal with all of this then? But timing. You guys know, like, when you're dealing with a ship this big, you can't just turn on a dime. Things turn a little bit slower, and that's okay. That's okay. Let's start with Amendment 1, worldwide regionalization. What does this do? So this amendment restructures the United Methodist Church worldwide. It replaces the outdated central conferences outside the U.S. with regional conferences everywhere, including one for the United States. So this means every region, whether it's the U.S., Africa, the Philippines, or Europe, would have similar powers to adapt portions of the Book of Discipline to their local context. So why does this matter? Right now, the United States, the specific legislation has to be debated by the whole church, right? This change would prevent that, freeing up General Conference to handle only truly worldwide matters. So think of it as a move toward parity and mutual respect across all regions, right? So the theological frame for this, the church is a body with many parts. Regionalization acknowledges that our contexts are different, but our mission is united.
That's right. Amendment 2, inclusiveness of the church. This amendment explicitly adds the word gender to the list of protections in paragraph 4 of the Constitution. That means no one, discipline. That means no one can be excluded from membership, participation, or worship based on gender, just as they can't be excluded based on race, status, national origin, or economic condition. Why it matters? It aligns our United Methodist Constitution with our other stated commitments, and honestly closes some of the loopholes that the very best of us have used over years in not good ways. While the Book of Discipline already affirms gender equity, this amendment guarantees it in the most foundational governing document of our church. We are all made in the image of God. This amendment affirms that truth for women, men, non-binary, all people, I think, is the takeaway.
Yep, all means all. Amendment 3, racial justice. So what does this do? This is a much stronger and more direct anti-racism statement than what currently exists. So it names the historical and ongoing sins of white supremacy, colonialism, and racism, and calls the church to confront and eliminate them in every expression of its life and ministry. So why does this matter? The current language is too soft and too vague. This amendment moves from general disapproval to active opposition. It commits the United Methodist Church to being explicitly anti-racist. The theological frame for this is that racism is a sin. It's a sin that distorts the image of God in others and in ourselves. This amendment dares to name that truth with the moral clarity that our time requires.
Yeah, this one is important, and it is, I was going to say political, but everything is. It gets under people's feathers, it gets under people's skin. Why do they have feathers? It gets under people's skin, in fact, because some would say, I don't understand, the real racism stuff was over a long time ago. And I would go, nah, I think what this is trying to bring to light isn't trying to open up old wounds. I've heard that a lot of times. This is simply acknowledging that it never went away. That we were mistaken to have this softer, vague language in there and think that everything was going to be fine.
Yeah.
So we're going to call it out. Active opposition, as Jesse said.
Yep.
I think that's
the way that I think about it is that slavery was 400 years. Not to mention the discrimination and racism that lingered until the 80s.
Lingers,
Jesse.
Lingers.
We're not going to get rid of that in 40 years. It's just not going to happen that way. And so, we have a lot of work to do, and the work that we're doing in this and in all things is restoring the image of God. So we'll get to it.
That's right. Amendment 4. clergy delegate voting qualifications. This amendment clarifies that local pastors who want to vote for clergy delegates must have completed either course of study or a MDiv from a university Senate-approved seminary, and have served 2 consecutive years under appointment. Why does it matter? This helps ensure that voting clergy have met the educational standards set by the denomination. It's about consistency, clarity, and integrity in our representation process. Voting is not just about having a voice, it's about being prepared to carry that responsibility with care and formation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a
So
lot
those
of
are
big things
those are
happen.
amendments. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I think for me personally, I'm grateful that I'm trusted with this big work.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot of really important things happening this year, and every year that we gather for annual conference, it's important. But these specific ones are incredibly important as well, and I'm grateful for the honor to be able to vote on those things. Big changes, but I'm great. I'm also grateful that we are a part of a church that is fluid, that is holding on to what is the core of our beliefs and adapting to the times. So
Water changes shape, but it doesn't change its actual composition. It's still water.
I love that. Oh, and we are people of the water.
And we are people of
baptized
the water.
people, and we
That's
love
right.
it.
Water has memory, folks. Leave it alone. It'll be fine.
Water has memory.
Watch Frozen. It'll teach you what you need to know about this stuff.
That is such a dad thing to say. Such a dad thing to say.
We are a church that listens across differences, or at least we want to be. A church that refuses to tolerate injustice, or at least we should be. A church that speaks clearly about who belongs and who decides who belongs.
Amen.
And these are the things we're going to wrestle with at annual conference. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and so we did our best to make sure that we shared these things with clarity, but we know that there's probably a lot of other questions out there. There's a lot.
This is surface level, folks. Hopefully this whet your appetite. Go do your research. Go look at, there's documents out there for this.
Yes.
ac2025.org. Did I just say that right?
You did.
And Jesse will say it again here at the end of the episode. Go there. That's where we will have all the information that you need on these amendments and other things. And Jesse's also going to mention the webinar again, because Kim are going to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, of course. And who better to hear it from than Kim Ingram and Bishop Ken Carter?
That's right.
And so that is coming, again, happening Monday night. The Monday that I'm talking about is the 9th of June. But, of course, as in all things, that will be recorded if you can't be there live. We'd love for you to be there live, ask all the questions. But if you can't, we will definitely make sure that that's recorded and available to you. That's designed to give clergy and laity clarity, not just lay folks, but clergy as well, and make sure that we have theological grounding and procedural understanding for all of these things as well. And so we really, really encourage you to participate in that, and to make sure that you have clarity before annual conference gets here, so that you can have the best time possible. You won't be, if you do come, and we encourage you to come. This is not just for clergy and for laity. Anybody can come to annual conference. You can't vote on everything, but you can be present and you can learn about the direction that the church is going in, and you can participate in all the fun things that we have at annual conference, and just enjoy Lake Junaluska. I mean, who doesn't need an opportunity to enjoy Lake Junaluska? And so we encourage you to stay up to date. ac2025.org. We hope that today gave you a little bit more context, a little bit more clarity, and maybe even a little bit more courage. Whether you're heading to Junaluska or praying from home, we encourage and we appreciate your prayers. We also know that the folks at Lake Junaluska have done an incredible job of getting our annual conferences online, and so you can participate online as well. And so we encourage you to do that. I believe there will be a YouTube link and more. I just don't know what the more is, but there's definitely going to be a YouTube link. And I know you guys know how to use YouTube. So to those preparing for ordination, we are with you. We know that you are in the thick of it right now, making sure, going over your lists and checking it twice and making sure that everybody is in the right place. And so we appreciate all the good work that you are doing. We appreciate Bishop Ken Carter. We appreciate Kim Ingram. We appreciate everyone who is doing this good work. We know that you guys will definitely deserve a vacation after this. To those coming with questions about the amendments, we invite you to lean in. As I've said, there's the webinar that you can get your questions answered, but you can also just ask us directly. Leave us a comment, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And to all of us, let's keep being the church. This is how we gather to be the church so that we can scatter and be the church, not just in a committee, but in the community. We are the Means of Grace podcast, as a podcast by the Western North Carolina Conference. My co-host, as always, John Yeager. Love having you as my co-host. Love having these conversations with you. Love having all of our listeners listen in and give us their feedback. I'm Jesse Enniss.
And I'm John Yeager. Thank you for walking with us.
We'll see you in the mountains.